Welcome into Mississippi State Postgame Live here on the Voice of College Football Network. I'm Andrew Miller. A little bit of a different setup for me today. I'm not in my typical recording space, but it actually makes it look like I'm not in a prison. That was like one of the first videos I did. I got a comment like, are you like in solitary confinement or something? Because I always record right up against a wall. I have, dusty window shades behind me. So it's a little bit of a different background than normal. Basically, it's just the way I had things set up today, watching games, a couple TVs off to my left. I didn't feel like having to try to set all that up to go live afterwards because I also don't want to miss games while we were doing the post game. But yeah, Mississippi State gets the win. We knew they would with plenty of ease, 63-0 over Alcorn State. We'll get into that game a little bit here. Obviously, not a ton we're going to take away. But look, maybe if people in the chat, as we get a few more people in here, if they want to talk about other things taking place across college football, because it's been a fun Saturday so far. It's been a fun evening so far as well. I'm happy to talk about it. It's been a really good day of ball. For those of you who are here, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on that notification bell so you do know when we go live. That's especially going to be beneficial for you for these post-game shows where – obviously it's dependent on when the game ends, and then my writing responsibilities that I have to get taken care of sort of determines how quickly I'm able to get going. So you want to have that notification bell on so when we're live, you can come and join and be a part of the channel. As well as, look, as we get this thing going further, we might find ourselves getting into like instant reaction shows to other things happening news-wise across Mississippi State football. So that's why we definitely want to have the notifications turned on. If you could share the channel, we would certainly appreciate it. Keep this thing growing. But yeah, Mississippi State does exactly what they needed to against Alcorn State. If there was any concern about a hangover after what they did against Arizona State a week ago, getting that big program potentially changing win, you didn't see it. And look, obviously this is a game where you could have gotten away with it because of how bad Alcorn State is, and because of how much of an advantage the Bulldogs had. If they'd come out sloppy and just not at all locked in, it wouldn't have been an issue. It wouldn't have looked good, but it wouldn't have been an issue for the final result. They still would have rolled to a win, but it kind of is the way we've seen it all season. Offensively, first drive, 2 plays in, touchdown. Should have been a touchdown on the first play. Blake overthrew Brennan Thompson, who was wide open there to start off the game. And then the second play comes back and hits Jordan Mosley basically on the same play for a touchdown. They scored their first 4 drives of the game. Defense mostly did a good job getting them off the field pretty quickly. They were definitely locked in early. So if you were worried about a hangover, you didn't see it in this game. Tucker Medlin in the chat. Is there anything to take away with Jimothy starting at left tackle and James at right tackle? I know Reese will be back at right tackle next week, but who goes to left tackle? I don't know if there's too much to be taken away there. Well, look, I think Jimothy's clearly the guy, right? Jimothy is the guy that they are expecting to be the left tackle for the future, both off of potential, but also, that's who they turned to in week 1 when they had to move Albert Reese over to right tackle with Blake Steen going down. Jimothy's who stepped in. And I believe, I didn't do a good job that first week paying close attention to who was getting snaps at which point of the game. I think a few of the media who were there talked about that Jimothy was in even earlier than that. He was already taking snaps at left tackle before that point. So that's clearly who they want. And playing Javen James there last week was very much a case of like they did it out of necessity because Jimothy questioned his availability throughout the week. I think it was sort of officially a game time decision by the time they got up to it against Arizona State. But I mean, they played him because they had to, and it turns out he had one of the best performances of a guy stepping in that you could have asked for. Especially considering the game, the moment, the opponent, for him to step in and play really well speaks very highly of him. So I think this week with Jimothy back available, him playing left tackle, Javen at right tackle, probably does say what we kind of already knew, which is Jimothy's the guy they want there. And I think Javen is someone that it will sort of just be a swing tackle for them moving forward. Or, look, he's played in 2 games at this point. I was going to say redshirt. I don't know if you can redshirt him. He probably is taking a redshirt at this point in his career already. But that's someone that you can rotate in, at least, assuming you do have Reese back next week. I don't know if Jeff Levy said that in the postgame or not. I haven't gotten a chance to look at his postgame comments on what the situation was there. a little surprised they played Jimothy, to be honest. If he was banged up last week, I thought you might hold him out this week. But I guess if Reese was down, and he was, then that says you want to make sure you have him out there. And I guess there is also a point to be had. You can't redshirt the guy. He redshirted a year ago. You want him to be your guy, get him valuable reps. So that, I guess that is a good thing that they played Jimothy out there this week and let him get back up to speed. Because this is a game where State could have, rotated a lot more bodies, could have let guys get more rest. But you can also get those valuable reps as well for younger players. And even though Jimothy's someone that State fans want to count on, or State wants to count on, he is someone that definitely needs those reps as a young, growing player. But yeah, man, State came out locked in, and they just handled business, and I think that is a sign of a mature team. I'm not going to overreact to a blowout win here. Alcorn State's not good. They are not a good football team. State was going to win this game easily no matter what. But to handle business the way they did, to get the shutout, and I know Alcorn, look, they missed a field goal. They really had a wide-open touchdown that was just should have been a caught. It was a good throw, too. Should have been caught, should have been a walk-in touchdown, turns into an interception. I'm not going to sit here and say the defense necessarily played shutout football, but at the end of the day, you get your first shutout since 2017. You get your biggest blowout win since 1950. So those are good things to see. 155 total yards of offense allowed. Thinking about the defensive performance, there was a few times where it's like Alcorn was getting some nice plays. They're moving the ball, and I think it's really easy to overreact to that, which I do think people do have to remember. Hey, over the course of a game, it's rare that even if you have a big advantage, that the other team isn't going to be able to put together a drive here or there. You held them to 155 yards. It's the fewest yards allowed in a game since 2022, which was East Tennessee State at the end of that, late in that season, which 154 yards in that game. This is a fine showing by the defense. They stepped up and forced turnovers when they needed to, with getting that interception, getting a couple forced fumbles, and getting a nice run back on one of them. I think you have to be pleased overall with what you got defensively. On offense, the story has to be Kamario Taylor, as Will brings up here in the chat. How about K1 lining up at running back? I thought that was really cool. They got him involved in the way that they did early, instead of it just being a case of, hey, we'll get you in the game when it's time for you to come in and play quarterback, which he got those reps and he played well. I know the passing that we saw from him outside of the touchdown pass on that third drive of the game. I don't know. I think one of the passes got called back, but it was a good play. I mean, keeping his eyes downfield and finding a man for what should have been a conversion. Ran the ball well, 3 rushes for 40 yards. Leads a touchdown drive there late in the game. You definitely see the ability. And, yeah, man, finding the package to get him out there and running those trick plays. Like, obviously, the first you get the setup play where you get all the attention put on him, have him split out wide in that diamond formation, only for them to flip it inside to Anthony Evans and let him take a huge run, which is crazy. Anthony Evans, he does get a touchdown. He deserved a touchdown for the performance he had in this game, but so many times came close on some of those carries and the kick returns, which you see the explosive ability that he has. But you run that play and then you set it up, toss it to Camario, let him get the shot down the field. And, I always go back and forth about, doing that in a game like this where, you don't need a play like that in a game like this, but at the same time, you put it on film. You potentially can set something up with it the rest of the way. You maybe run that package at another point of the season, and a defense has to account for it and deal with it. But it also just lets Camario get involved, and that's a guy who I think needs to get involved. I was a bit surprised they didn't play him against Arizona State last week. I thought it would make sense to continue the short yardage package thing that we've seen with him, because, man, he's so valuable in that role. You see the speed, you see how quickly he gets upfield, and obviously the physicality he offers between the tackles. You see it in this game, the carries Blake Shapen had, which they weren't even necessarily designed. I know there's a couple of zone reads there, so he has the option. And look, on the touchdown run, he goes untouched, but there's a few times I'm pretty sure Blake got back to the sideline on one of those, and I saw Jeff Levy say, "Don't run to him." I remember the first game Shapen played a season ago. I made a comment that his self-preservation is like a 0. Like he goes out. You appreciate the guy for playing hard, but he does not do things to protect himself. You saw it again in this game. talking about Kamario, that he looks huge on the field. He does, which is why he's the guy you want taking those hits. I understand wanting to preserve the red shirt. I understand wanting to have the ability to potentially have 4 years of him as your guy on the field. But, man, for me, he's just so valuable of a player. It makes a ton of sense to get him involved, which we did see the run game. And you didn't necessarily have to have him be the short yardage guy. Fluff Bothwell, 12 carries for 93 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Xavier Gayden, 4 carries for 50 yards, had a 25-yard touchdown there in the second half. Shout out to Seth Davis, man. 2 carries for 31 yards, including a 23-yard touchdown. That was awesome to see. That was awesome to see the celebration and the whole team going and embracing him, a guy who's been through so much, a guy who, look, I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, you're surprised he's still here, right? You're surprised he's still a part of the team. Not that, he's a bad Bulldog or anything. He obviously was a very good player when we got to see him, but when a guy goes through an injury like that, and then you see all the other players that have come in at that position, it's like, okay, well, clearly he's going to go somewhere else and get a fresh start, find playing time. He stuck with it. And look, do I know how much time he's going to be able to get the rest of the year with reps? I don't know. But it was awesome for him to get in the game, to get an opportunity. A little surprised. Devon Booth, 2 rushes for 14 yards, just didn't really get him involved. Now, some of that is obviously he splits carries with Bothwell as like the co-starters at running back, and it just so happened Booth goes out there on the first drive, and the first 2 plays are passing plays, and you score, and that's just kind of how it goes. But felt like he didn't get involved that much the rest of the way. I mean, Johnny Daniels in this game, 5 carries for 16 yards, didn't really fully get it going, but you saw him get a few more touches and get involved. So they didn't get Devon Booth involved in much. Yeah, curious about the lack of Booth. It was a little odd. I mean, he played, so I don't think it's a case of him being in the doghouse. It may literally just be as simple as like, hey, when he was on the field, they were throwing the football. Or Shapen was making the decision to throw. It just happened to be the play that was called, and he'll get his opportunities the rest of the way. We're not going to just scheme up carries for him because, look, State was more deliberate running the football in this game. 36 rushes compared to just 18 passes total, so more than a 2-to-1 run to pass ratio in this game. 282 yards rushing, 6 rushing scores, 7.8 yards per carry. This was the dominance on the ground that you would definitely expect from the Mississippi State against an opponent like this. This is one of those games where you did see them just line up and power the football in regardless of what the defense was showing. And it makes a ton of sense. Pass protection a couple times was a little iffy. They let some pressure get on Shapen, but also, I mean, at the same time, they were sending pressure. Sort of their only chance of getting a stop. But, I mean, I thought the run blocking was fine. It wasn't just the push, and I apologize for the stupid clock going off next to me. That's just going to have to be a part of this. I thought I silenced that thing. That's great. Look, State ran the ball really well in this game. Shapen was efficient, 10 of 14, 173 yards, 2 scores. Obviously, Camario, 2 of 3 passing for 46 and a touchdown, but he did have a good completion taken off the board. Luke Kromenhoek gets involved, leads a touchdown. I was going to say leads a touchdown drive. He had a touchdown run because they get him in there after a fumble return, but he was 1 of 1 passing for 11 yards. So got him involved. 4 catches for 66 yards for Anthony Evans, 2 catches for 53 and a score for Brendan Thompson. Thanks for returning Jordan Mosley. 1 catch for 75 yards for him. Still a mostly quiet day outside of the one big play, but you hadn't seen that yet from him this year. I think there was a couple times he took a shot to him in the first couple weeks and just weren't able to connect, but not as much from Mosley early on this season. So good to see him get involved. Definitely would like to see a few other guys step up. You got a Austin Williams or Aiden Williams at the reception. San Francisco McGee, Grayson Harris both getting a catch. Max Reese getting a pair of grabs. Still no catches for Seydou Traore. That's now 2 straight weeks without a grab for him. A little disappointing there. I mean, I know the receivers are obviously going to get most of the attention with what they want to do, but I thought Traore was a guy that'd get involved more. I am wondering if going forward you see an offense where they do try to throw it a little bit more in like the short to intermediate part of the field, which would lend towards Traore getting involved more, but still a mostly quiet day for him. I mean, look, State was playing on easy mode, obviously, in this game offensively. You can't take too much away other than really cool to see Seth Davis get to his opportunity, and you see the potential of Kamario Taylor. Look, the throw that he made, the throw that he makes there on the touchdown, that's flat-footed with pressure in his face and still, basically throws a dart. And I get it. It's wide open, but it's still good to see. So you see the potential. You see what he has to bring. That's a guy you want to be able to get involved. Is Shapen just overestimating Thompson's speed? I don't know, man. It's crazy that he overthrows the fastest man in college football. But a few of it's also where it is on the field. The second one that he overthrows, he doesn't even give him a chance. It was open for a touchdown, but you just kind of lob the ball there. You don't Shapen gets a little overzealous with it. I guess something scary happened in this Arkansas Ole Miss game. They've been out on the field now. I see the stretcher coming out. I don't know who went down. That's a crazy situation, though. Hope the best for whoever's there, whoever that is that went down. It is weird that he keeps overthrowing him, though. And happened last week. Yeah, no, he did. He overthrew him it should have been a touchdown in the second half to him with Thompson and overthrew him. Just a weird situation overall. Right there that you're overthrowing a guy that fast. But I think they'll get it locked in as they continue to throw more against actual defenses the rest of the way. Maybe Shapen just gets a little bit overzealous there. I don't know, but he definitely needs to rein that in. Defensively, no one guy stands out. Darian Gillette gets 5 tackles to lead the way. Then you have 4 different guys with 4. Rasheem Thomas, 4 tackles and a tackle for loss in this game. So kind of a little bit of a coming out party for him. Also forced a fumble. Jamil Burrows with the tackle for loss. Only 1 sack on the day, that coming from DJ Reed. I will say State's defensive approach is kind of similar to what I saw against Southern Miss, where, look, they very much played super conservative. They basically stayed in their 3-3-5 defense the majority of the day because, again, they sort of are taking that mindset of, we fully believe that you are not going to be able to move the ball consistently against us over the course of a 4-quarter game and score. We're going to keep everything in front of us, force you have to run a bunch of plays and trust our defense to win out more often than not. So you weren't getting a ton of pass rush up front, but you also weren't sending a ton of rushers all that much. I'm not saying you don't want to see more pass rush. You do. But I think kind of what we saw against Arizona State, I think if State wants to be attacking on defense, they will. Stylistically, they're going to switch things up. In a game like this, they were pretty much just sitting back and keeping everything in front of them, clog up the interior lanes, don't let them just gas you on the ground, and leave it to that. Not a ton that stands out defensively. Really, the big takeaways here: you don't have the hangover. You handle business the way you're supposed to. Defense gets a shutout, which you'd love to see. Even with a few plays here or there they would like to have back, you handle business, and you feel a little bit better about the defense, definitely than you did going into the year, which I know that was already the case after what we saw the first 2 weeks. But look, after the way things happened in the second half last week, what would it look like in this game? They come out and they handle business, and then Kamario Taylor, right? You get the excitement there. Arkansas player gave his thumb up to the crowd. Yeah, I just saw that. Scary situation. Hope the best for that kid. So, there's not a whole lot to take away. I'll get back to this question here from DBC, and I wasn't ignoring it. I was just trying to get through the takeaways from the game because there's not a lot. I think they'll make a bowl even with starting 4-0 if when they beat NIU. The SEC schedule brutal. Florida and Arkansas would be the best bets, but they're close with LSU and TSUN respectively at the moment. Yeah, look, I get it. I actually wrote something on this at Maroon and White Nation the other day. Yesterday, actually. I should have written it early in the week, but, and I just talked about how finally the program has momentum, right? That was the main point of what I was writing. And I talked about how, okay, you have this momentum. Now you have to build off of it. You can't have the big win. And I know, Brian Haydad has made this point on his show a few times. That win cannot be the highlight of the season. And I'm okay with that being the biggest win of the season, but like his point and the point that I would agree with is it can't be, well, you had that big win, similar to what Kentucky did with Ole Miss last year. Kentucky beat Ole Miss last year. Crazy, awesome win. What did it mean in the grand scheme of things for Kentucky? Nothing. It went 4-8. They still hate Mark Stoops. They still want Mark Stoops fired. It ruined Ole Miss's season, which is fun. That's cool. But for Mississippi State's standpoint, like this one win can't be the only positive thing that happens. You have to continue building off it. Can't be a repeat of the 2020 LSU game. That I would say I'm not just saying this to be a Mike Leach guy. The Missouri win was fun late in the year. And also the bowl win. like I will say the difference there is that team closed the season playing better football. They showed a good effort at Georgia, showed a good effort at Ole Miss. You get the win over Mizzou, you get the bowl win. It felt like that. You saw like, okay, Mike Leach getting things trending in the right direction. I think though the comparison for me, I would be that Kentucky game last season, Kentucky Ole Miss, where it can't just be a win that ultimately that was fun upset, crazy things happen to college football, but that was it. I hear you that the schedule is still difficult. I said that in the piece that I wrote. Like the schedule doesn't get any easier, right? Florida's probably worse than we thought. I know they're battling LSU, but look, Florida still has a lot of talent, and like LSU is not without their own flaws. Arkansas does look better, but I would guess those kind of flip-flop. Missouri looks a whole lot better, but Ole Miss probably looks – I know Ole Miss is winning right now, but Ole Miss probably looks a little bit worse. Like Texas looks a lot worse, So I don't know how much it changed. Like overall, has the SEC schedule changed? No. I totally get that point. You can't be 4-0, though, and then not find a way to continue building off of it. That's the tough thing. Like if you were 4-0 – you got to find a couple wins. And with what we have seen, like State beat Arizona State, who I still believe to be a good team. I don't think Arizona State's going to fall off the face of the earth. I know everybody wants to dunk on the Big 12, and I won't be shocked if they don't win the Big 12 because the Big 12 is one of those leagues where everybody can beat everybody. And counting on someone to be a repeat champion is difficult. But I still think Arizona State's going to be a quality team when it's all said and done. They're going to be a top 40 caliber team nationally. And I know people hear that and it's like, well, top 40 teams, nothing special. Truth be told, the difference between the number 15 team in the country and the number 40 team in the country is not a lot. It's really not. That's why top 25 is kind of a weird arbitrary cutoff point when it comes to ranking teams. There's not a huge gap between a team. Maybe 15 is a little bit much, but I'll say between 20 and 40, those teams are pretty similar to one another. And frankly, there are teams in the top 20 that are pretty similar that just happen to find a few wins here and there. So I think Arizona State, I do think that win is going to age well. I say all that to say, if you can win that game while having the inconsistencies that State did on that night with what they did offensively, the way they played on defense in the second half, to me that says like you should be able to find another game where at some point you have to put together a complete performance, but you should be able to find at least another win somewhere else. You really should be able to find two. Finding two SEC wins should not be too tall a task for this team. Does it mean you're going to have to beat somebody who's good? Yes. You've already shown you can beat somebody who's good. That's part of life. And I'll be honest, that's going to be life going forward, man, in the SEC. Like you're going to have to beat good teams to go to bowls. The days of when you're for not like gimme non-con games and then you get a couple terrible teams at the bottom that you get to beat. Like we're State for years, Kentucky was going to suck. And then there was going to be someone else on that schedule from the SEC West who had a down season. Most years it was Arkansas, right? So Kentucky and Arkansas both suck. State's going to win their 4 non-con. There's your 6 wins. You're going to a bowl. See if you can build off of that anymore. And obviously Ole Miss had some bad years in there as well. I don't think you're going to get a lot of years like that going forward. Sure, there's always the chance of the luck of the draw with the schedule where you could get a favorable matchup. But overall, I would expect you're mostly going to get teams that are pretty solid when you talk about the schedule. So you're going to have to beat good teams if you want to talk about going to a bowl. And I know State fans' expectations of going to bowl games are not changing anytime soon. We all still expect to see this program going to bowl games for the future, at least as like the minimum expectation that you're competing for bowl eligibility. We want more than that as well. So I think you have to show that you can win those games. And it does start this year. So I get it. The schedule doesn't get easier. It's still going to be tough to find wins the rest of the way, but you kind of have to do it. You can't – because if you don't do it, then that win ultimately becomes in vain. It really does. That win becomes – it was a fun moment, but then they didn't build off it. They didn't do anything else with it. And all the momentum you have from a fan base standpoint, all the momentum you have from a recruiting standpoint, because I do think if you turn this into a bowl season, that's going to be huge for recruiting the rest of the way. All that fades away. So you got to be able to continue building off it. And the way to do that now is find a way to make a bowl. It's going to be tough, but you still got to find a way to be able to do it. I don't think it's an unreasonable ask. So, look, obviously, State handled their business against Alcorn. Can't take too much away from it, but 6-3-0 win. Nobody's going to complain about that. It's just a matter of now you got to lock in. You got Northern Illinois next week. Let me do some live check-in, what the Huskies were up to. this week. Also, speaking of MAC teams, Joe Moorhead's team scored points. Multiple, actually. All it took was playing Trent Dilfer. So good for them. They're finally finding ways to score. We'll check out what NIU's up to, if they're even playing this week. They didn't play. That's lame. Okay, well, NIU is like 1-1 on the season. They had a close game with Holy Cross, which is a good FCS program, but still a close game with Holy Cross in week 1, and then got offense did absolutely nothing against Maryland in week 2, and Maryland's not a good team. You should be able to handle business, right? You should be able to build off what you did tonight, find a win, and continue moving forward after that. Should be 4-0 going to Tennessee. And look, the Vols looked good today offensively. That offense found ways to score against Georgia. Ultimately should have won the game. And the fact that they scored against Georgia tells me, okay, yeah, this is a different Tennessee offense. Like they have figured some things out where it's not the same. It's not the same things we've seen in the past. That said, their defense looked a lot more suspect. And I know Georgia's got pieces, but keep in mind, Tennessee gave up points to Syracuse, who is not very good. And Georgia's offense had not looked all that great through the first couple weeks. And they had a huge day on the road in Knoxville. So, like, State's offense is going to have to step up in that game. So, that's a big opportunity. Tennessee looks tough. But, I mean, if you were 4-0 going to that game, it should be a crazy atmosphere. And you're going to have a chance. I still would say Tennessee's better than I thought, but they still look like a beatable team. So you're going to have opportunities to continue building off this, having a good season. Any other thoughts from anybody? Frankly, I've kind of run out of things to say, right? Because there's not a whole lot to talk about when it comes to this game. This is a win we knew State was going to have. And I'm not going to sit here trying to turn it into something it's not. But if you got any commentary on the win that you want to get included in the chat, if you have any thoughts on what happened across college football today, Georgia Tech getting the win over Clemson. I thought Clemson would get that one, to be honest. And I want to look at the post-game win expectancy just because Clemson moved the ball really well in that game, but they turned it over twice and couldn't get stops on the final drive. So, game goes the way it does. Run defense looked a little shaky early, but got better late. Yeah, I do think early in the game they were not flying down to stop the run the way maybe you would have liked to see. I guess if you were going to say there's a side of the ball that was still doing some adjusting early on, it was the defense. But it did get better as the game went along, which is why I didn't really take too much from it. And look, again, shut them out, right? And not to say that you can't find things that were a negative, even in a shutout win. You can always find things to point to that they've got to be better on. There were definitely a few plays here or there. But, hey, Diego Brumfield got beat, right? That should have been a touchdown. But guy drops it, and then he makes the pick. And if you're going to get burnt and get gifted an interception, you got to take advantage, and he ultimately did. Other things around college football, man, Notre Dame just scoring there to take the lead over A&M. They got a shootout, which I thought that would happen. I did call a shootout in that game. I had the Aggies winning, though, so we'll see how that turns out. Ole Miss, Arkansas, obviously that's a shootout, which feels like old times. I saw the comment earlier that the Ole Miss defense is not looking great. Yeah, their defense has fallen off. It was inevitable. It was inevitable their defense was going to take a significant step back from where it was a season ago. I know that they were all selling the hype on their defensive line. And look, I do think there's talented pieces there for sure. They're not going to be a terrible team, but I don't think they're going to be terrible defensively. They're not great. Heupel might be snake bit against Kirby. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just Tennessee at this point. Tennessee is snake bit against Kirby because, I mean, that extends back to even long before. I mean, I know Butch Jones got the win over them in the craziest fashion, but they also took a couple losses to Georgia that were just crazy stupid. It continues to be a problem. I mean, if nothing else, like I know Heupel is the head coach, he still wears it. Like the fact his offense put up the points in this game is a good sign for the future for them at least because they hadn't been able to score. And for a while, I thought it was going to be the case again because they go up 21. You get 21 points in the first quarter, and then their offense goes silent for a long stretch. I was like, okay, yeah. If people have seen the tweet from Parker Fleming, like, Beautiful, nice. Now let's see the unscripted drives. I thought that was what was happening in that game, but Tennessee offense figured some things out and got things rolling. But their defense, especially down their top two corners, Georgia made some plays downfield. Gunnar Stockton, really ballsy with that fourth down touchdown throw. State's going to have some opportunities. Is Vandy good or is Lenore Sellers overrated? I'm not watching that game. Let me check in on what's taking place there. ESPN app taking forever to load on my phone. This is great. Sellers is hurt. Oh. Well, then I'm going to be more kind. When did he get hurt? Like, at what point did he go down? 21-7, Vanderbilt's got the lead late in the third quarter. How was Sellers playing before going down? Right before the half? Okay. Oh, okay. Lenore Sellers had a good first half statistically. Did have an interception. I don't know what the deal was there. But 3 for -3 rushing. Look, I talked about this with Sellers. I don't know how many of you were watching the last pod we did. We did not have much on our Thursday night call-in show, which that's fine. We're playing Alcorn State. I don't care. But we made our SEC picks, and I talked about this game a little bit. And also, what you should go check out, go subscribe to SEC on the Voice of College Football, that YouTube channel. Wednesday nights, I'll be a part of the show for SEC Primetime Live with my guys Josh and Blake talking about all things SEC football. So if you want more SEC football talk, you should go over there. But what I talked about in this game is like Lenore Sellers, for as talented as he is and for as much as he makes some incredible superhuman plays, the guy takes a lot of sacks and the guy also turns the football over. And I hope he's okay. I hope whatever the injury isn't serious, but if he can't just scramble around and make plays with his legs, he's not a good enough passer yet to really beat you in other ways. And look, to be fair to him, the offensive line in front of him at South Carolina is not good. Do not have a run game. The receiving core is very mediocre overall. He has to do it all, but he's just other than the crazy Superman plays that he makes a couple times a game, he can't do it consistently enough for them to be a team that truly was going to take a step forward. So no, it does not surprise me that Vanderbilt's up in that game the way that they are. Bama rolled. Ty Simpson looked really good. I know it was Wisconsin, but I'm a Ty Simpson believer. I don't mind saying that. We'll see what it looks like against a better team going forward. And also, what does Bama's offense look like? Or Bama's defense look like when they don't have to play a short quarterback who runs? That's the question. Will Bama find a way to sneak back in the playoffs? I pray for their downfall every weekend, but they've looked a lot better the last 2 weeks against much worse teams. Ultimately, I don't think the Florida State loss is going to end up being a problem. I'm just spitting right now. That's great, which is a penalty in the NFL and also costs you in college football. Got to remember about that. It's been a bad run for people who spit in football. God, what was I even talking about? Alabama. FSU looks like they're going to be a much better team this year. I don't know if they're going to be great, but if they're an 8+ win team, a road loss to open up the season there is not really going to matter. Obviously, it doesn't impact Bama for the conference race. So they could still theoretically find a way when it comes to winning the SEC, and then you're already in the playoff. But I don't think they can get away with they may not be able to afford more than one loss. That's going to be the whole big question for them. Can they be a 9-3 team getting in when they weren't a season ago? I don't know. Obviously, every year is a different situation. If it's 9-3 and they don't have, what hurt them last year when they were 9-3 was because the losses were bad. Vanderbilt and Oklahoma were bad losses, and you can't use the strength of schedule argument if you take losses to bad teams. I think Florida State's going to end up being fine. If their losses are to quality teams, they might still be able to find a way to get back into it. So we'll see what they look like going forward, but definitely have to see them against better teams to really get back in on it. Is Bama legit? Texas looks ugly, but I didn't watch any of that game. But they do not look special at all. About Sellers, people have tried to make a ton of QB prospects in the next Cam Newton or Josh Allen. The reason only two of those guys, and we talk about them all the time, Yeah, and what's funny is like those are two different guys in a little bit of a way. And I know you know this, but Josh Allen is one of the rare examples of a guy who in college, it's like you see the athleticism and the tools, but the on-field production was kind of eh. And then he to the NFL and it clicked. Now, I've seen some counter takes on that actually some of that was just because the pieces around him at Wyoming were so poor that they weren't able to really take advantage of what he had available to him. But he very much was like, either Josh Allen's going to make some crazy plays for Wyoming or Wyoming was going to lose football games. But because of that, Wyoming, like Josh Allen had a lot of bad habits. He was not particularly accurate with the football. He had some really stupid decisions throwing the football. Didn't always see the field the way you need a guy to. And he's one of the few guys that you saw that in college consistently. An NFL team said, we are trusting the traits. We are trusting that we can get it out of him. And it worked. And he became an MVP caliber player, an MVP winner. Like I am so hesitant with the guys who don't have the passing production at the college level and consistent passing production. I don't mean putting up big numbers. I mean showing you can operate a passing game at a high level. That always scares me off of prospects going to the next level. And he's like the one example of a guy who did it. But because of that one example, now it justifies it further for everybody else. And yeah, the Cam Newton thing. Cam Newton was Superman. Like finding another Superman is just really, really tough to do. And we don't have somebody else like that. So yeah, I know there's a ton of draft hype around the North Sellers. And again, hope he's okay. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I didn't see the play. Don't know the situation. Hope he's fine. Don't have anything against him either. Mississippi State doesn't play South Carolina, so I don't really care if he's successful or not. But haven't really seen anything from him to this point to make me think that guy's definitely stepping into the NFL as like a top-end prospect, but we'll see. But yeah, apparently Arch has a long way to go. We'll see about it. Yeah, Anthony Richardson. Teams fall in love with the tools, man, and I get why. Like there's having a certain level of athleticism lets you get away with a lot of things. It makes life a lot easier for you. And at the college level especially, like, yeah, if you can have a guy who's a superstar athlete that can cover up a lot of deficiencies. But the NFL, it's so rare to have a guy who is truly so good an athlete that you can overcome all the other concerns. As Old Dominion is blasting Virginia Tech, Brent Pry is going to be fired tomorrow. That is wild. ODU runs the same offense as Mississippi State. Also, ODU has another Mississippi State tie in that their coach worked with Joe Moorhead. We'll bring him up for the second time in this show. We're just rambling here. If you guys have anything else you want to talk about, we'll get it. Otherwise, we'll wind it down here. And because I know there's a lot of good games and we all want to get back to watching. But yeah, just closing thoughts. Mississippi State, they did what they were supposed to do. Tucker, glad I got to Blacksburg last week. It was a fun first quarter before Pavia took over. It's a bucket list. I mean, and that's cool you got to go. I hope that was a really fun experience. I would love to get to see it. I had a cousin who went to Virginia Tech. But yeah, man, Blacksburg I think would be a ton of fun to go to and see a game there. But that program, it's just in a rough spot. And I think they're kind of falling into that same area that a lot of programs are moving. Like the new era of the sport just makes life a lot tougher on them, which – we're one of those programs, for just being completely honest here. Yeah, it's part of life. And how do you continue to adapt? And thankfully, we know Mississippi State's got leadership in place who are doing everything they can to make sure State's able to get out of it. But they get the win today, 3-0 for the first time since 2018. That is a great thing to say. One more win to go over on their win total. They can be over before October. Not just over by October. They can be over before October. They handle business next week against NIU. They've put themselves in position too. And then if you do that, it's about finding a couple more wins the rest of the way, building off the momentum that you got in place. But good to see them handle business on this Saturday. That'll do it for me. We will be back Monday evening as we will look ahead to that Northern Illinois matchup. We'll talk about the Huskies. We'll talk about what we're looking for from State. We'll have more reactions to the fallout of what has been a crazy day of college football, a fun day of college football. And then later in the week, next Thursday, we will have our call-in show. Would love to have you guys be a part of it. Come join in. Give us your thoughts on the Bulldogs. It's your chance to come and be a part of the show. And like I said, Wednesdays, you can check me out on SEC, on the Voice of College Football with the SEC Primetime Live show as we're breaking down everything happening within the SEC. But yeah, be sure to like the video if you're not already, subscribe to the channel, turn that notification bell on, and share us. Thoroughly appreciate each and every one of you that have helped us continue to grow this thing, and we want to keep it moving along. Thanks everybody for listening, and as always, swing your sword, Hail State.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click Join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.